Hi, this is John Rosenhead, Torah and Psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post, the Pasha's Bay, is going to discuss effective communication. Because what we see in this week's Pasha, and following on from last week's Pasha, throughout this period of the Makos, is this ongoing discussion, interaction between Moshe Rabbeinu and Paro. That Moshe is coming and requesting again and again that Paro releases and frees the Bnei Yisrael, and he refuses every time. The response is the same. No, he is not willing to heed and to listen and to respect the request of Moshe Rabbeinu. And what we see is this ongoing period of these makos and that the suffering of Mitzrayim. But it doesn't matter how many times Moshe Rabbeinu came and requested, the same result played out. And we can bring in the aspect that is discussed in Mepharshim, that Paro's heart was hardened, and it's discussed whether that was, in a sense, taking away Paro's free will. But there are discussions that maybe Paro had his heart hardened as a punishment, that he hardened his own heart, that perhaps he was trying to outmuscle HaKadosh Baruch Hu and thought that he could see these makos through to the end. But putting that aside, we can just look at face value this interaction between Moshe Rabbeinu and Paro as a communication, in a sense of somebody trying to ask for something and the other person saying no. And if we look at dialectical behavior therapy, there is within DBT techniques that actually focuses on effective communication. How to increase the likelihood that when somebody has a request, they request something from somebody else, that the other person will respect that request. And this is presented through an acronym of Dear Man. I'm just going to describe very briefly what this entails, what is this acronym, and hopefully we can just pick up on a basic level certain skills that can be applied for effective communication. So Dear Man, D starts off with describe. Describing the situation in a clear, concise way, to be brief and to make sure that it is clear to the other person what is being discussed. E is to express your feelings and your thoughts, to not expect the other person to understand intuitively what you are thinking and what you are feeling. So it's important to express clearly how you are feeling about the situation or what you are thinking about the situation. A is to be assertive, to make sure that whatever your request is presented very clearly, to say exactly what you want, not to leave it as a vague request, something that the other person has to maybe second guess as well, what you are trying to say, what you are trying to ask for. To be assertive is to ask precisely and clearly for what you want the other person to do. R is to reinforce. Reinforcement, in a way, is to make the other person understand why it's worth their while to listen to your request. And it could be through, in a way, positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. The other person understands that if they listen, it's for their own benefit. There is something mutual that would suit and meet the needs of each person within this interaction, or to avoid any negative consequences. So that's the reinforcement, and in a way, it convinces the other person to agree to your request. M is to be mindful. In the sense, when there's communication, and especially when a person is making a request, the other person might respond with, in a way, perhaps initially immediate response of attacking you, going on the defense, perhaps going on a tangent in different topics and trying to avoid the topic. So it's important for you, as a person who's giving the request, to be mindful of what you're trying to achieve, of being mindful of your request, and to not be distracted, and therefore to repeat time and time again in a simple way what your request is. Then after that is A, is to appear confident. If you're giving a request, it makes a big difference how you present yourself, your body language, how you speak, that you're able to speak in a clear way, that you don't repeat yourself too many times, that you don't stutter, that you hold yourself in a confident way. That makes a difference. Body language makes a big difference in how the request is expressed and conveyed. And finally, with N, we have negotiate. Sometimes when you're making a request, you have to understand that there's a likelihood that the person might not want to agree, and therefore there is certainly room for negotiation. That you'll do something for them, that maybe you have to, in a way, fine-tune the request, or there's something that we can understand together of how to solve the problem. That is the element of negotiation that goes into Dear Man. And these are the tools that the person can use in effective communication. It doesn't mean that the person needs to use all of these elements of Dear Man in their communication. Whatever a person feels is suitable, and perhaps in a way to tailor the Dear Man techniques to the situation and to yourself as an individual, but to adapt it and to use it in an effective way to increase the likelihood that another person will understand and appreciate and respect your request. And this is what we can see in terms of what played out between Moshe Rabbeinu and Paro. There are elements of Dear Man, there are elements of the communication of what was being described and assertive. Perhaps there was a need as well of Moshe Rabbeinu to bring Aaron with him because he wants to appear confident. He was worried about his own stutter, and therefore he had Aaron HaKohen to come with him. So we have elements of warning and negotiation, of reinforcement of why it's worth his while to save his people, not to go through these makkos. So we see elements of this Dear Man of how to communicate in an effective way. Have a good Shabbos and keep well.